Hey, and thanks for joining us on this week's episode of For All Things Lexington, the only show dedicated to Lexington, South Carolina, and where a spade is always a spade. Here we'll talk to and about people, places, groups, things to do, and places to go in and around Lexington, South Carolina. I'm your host, Angela Barrett, and this is For All Things Lexington. Brought to you in part by GervaisStreetBridge.com, Columbia's most unforgettable free-to-list business directory.
This episode was brought to you in part by Ben Herritage, financial, investment, retirement, money management, and planning. And by Angela Barrett at HomeMattersSC.com, building on what matters to you.
Hey guys, today I've got with me Ben Herritage. He is Capital Financial Partners. Is that correct?
Yes, Capital Financial Partners.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being with me today.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you help people and their finances, I guess, for most people, I guess it would be to get to retirement.
That's a number one topic. Retirement is a big issue with a lot of people and really brings a lot of people to financial planning. But financial planning is a big, broad topic of where everything kind of comes together. Taxes, insurance, investments, right. A lot of things. Budgeting, cash flow. Everybody kind of sees me a little differently when they come to me. It's kind of what their need is.
And so I guess start from the beginning. Somebody comes in who's never had any help. I mean, they've done the best they could. They have a savings account, maybe a couple other things, and they're here. Let's talk, I guess, the 101 of it.
Right. Well, a lot of times people come to me because they've been referred by another client, and they come in because something's not great with their financial picture. Either they don't understand their investments, they don't understand where all their money's going, they don't know how they're going to get to retirement, they just don't know a lot of financial things that kind of aren't taught in school. We're just kind of expected to learn them as adults and as we go through life. So I do a pretty in-depth discovery meeting with people. And I want to go through tax returns and bank statements and retirement account statements and really see the financial picture of where somebody is today. And then ask them kind of how you got there. And then find out, what are you missing? What are you trying to accomplish? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to save for retirement? Are you trying to send your kids to college? Are you trying to buy that second home in Kiowa? What is the goal? And then we break it down and figure out how to reach those goals.
Oh, pretty cool. Now, what about like for, you don't do the investing side of it, but do you help guide people to that?
Well, we actually do both.
Oh,
we
okay.
do handle the investment. As a securities licensed person, mm-hmm. I have several of those. I have 4 different securities licenses that allow me to do the investment. I'm legally allowed to give investment advice. And that's where a lot of my training got me into the financial planning world, is dealing with people on their investments. So I think we all know we have to save for retirement. That's a given. But how much do you have to save and where do you put it? So a lot of people come to me and they have 3 or 4 old 401k accountments or a simple or a SEP IRA out there from another job, and they just have no idea what they're doing. They don't understand where the money is, why it's in this account versus that account and not this one. So it's a lot of pulling all that together for them.
Right. So right now, I guess since you do the investing part of it, I mean, what is not the actual, but the source of investment? Where is that best today, right now?
That is the question that everybody asks me. Like, where should I have my money invested? And it's like, well, it depends on which dollar you're investing. And as we sit here, we will all need money in 30 or 40 years. But we also need money today. And then we need money in 10 years. So that time frame dictates a lot of where money gets invested. You would not invest the same money for a 2-year-old for a college fund as you would an 18-year-old.
Sure.
That time frame gives you really how much risk you should be taking on with those dollars. The closer you get to retirement, you have to take on less risk. But even at 65, if you're retiring at that magic age, you still have to plan on 75, 85, and even 95 as needing that money. And that could be 30 years down the road. So again, risk and liquidity needs. When do you need the money? how much risk can you stomach kind of dictates where that money goes. This is where really the art of financial planning comes into play more so than the science. The science is easy. The science is math. Math tells us everything we need to do.
Some of us who are not math people, that's
well, it's understanding the math. It's like having equity in your home. It's what are you doing with that equity? Should you be doing something? Should you not be doing something with it?
Right.
How much does your debt cost you? It's understanding the needs of you as an individual and what you have as far as assets go, as far as investments, real estate, all kinds of different things, and how it all works together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where having a financial planner comes into play. Like we bring it together and make it make sense.
Yeah, that does. That makes sense to me. Now, what about emergency funds?
Emergency funds are where I start with a lot of people, because a lot of people understand they have to have cash on the sidelines, not invested, not in art, not in cars, not in anything other than liquid cash available. Not in a mason jar buried in your backyard, but in a secure spot.
In the mattress.
Not under the mattress. Also, not in your freezer. I've run into that before. So an emergency fund is one of the few rules of thumb that I use. I don't like them. I'd rather get specific with numbers. But with emergency funds, if you have a 2-income household, usually 3 months of actual true expenses. If you're a 1-income household, 6 months. I mean, that's an easy number to come up with. But true emergencies, not your Netflix account, not your club membership, actual true emergencies. Because right now, if you've got a lot of cash sitting in a bank account or a savings account, you're not earning anything. Even money market accounts right now are earning better than savings accounts. You can have a money market account at a bank earning 4%, where your savings account is not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So having accessible cash in the right type of account, working to at least keep up with some inflationary numbers, is pretty important. But understanding what that number is. How much cash do I need and where do I need to have it?
Right. So let's say I'm just going to throw out, I'm trying to be as if I were sitting in your office. Let's say, okay, I've got 20,000 that could be used for emergency funds. Where do you suggest to put that?
Well, if 20,000 is your number, and we come up with that after going through expenses and things, we would determine what's your operational budget. Is this 20,000 sitting in your checking account that you write bills out of? That's not where we want to put it. We would probably want it in a money market account linked to a checking account that could be easily transferred in case of an emergency.
Okay.
But, oddly enough, what I usually find these days is people have too much in cash.
Ooh.
It's kind of one of these things that you'd think it would be the opposite.
Right.
You hear a lot of bad news. If you watch the news, it's all bad news these days. Right. But when it comes to cash, a lot of the people I work with come in and their emergency fund might be $40,000 and they might have 60 or 70 in cash. And it's sitting in a savings account at Wells Fargo or Bank of America or whatever local bank you bank with. The problem, the number one problem with that is you've got excess cash that's actually going backwards because the purchasing power of that money is going down every year. Right. And we've all been to the grocery store in the last year or two. We all know we pay a lot more for stuff.
Right.
If those dollars are earning little to no interest and inflation is at 4, 5, 6, 7, even 8%, we've seen those numbers, you're going backwards. And that's a problem. So really the common thing I see with emergency funds is having too much cash. Not working appropriately.
Wow. How long does it, like somebody comes in the door and obviously y'all are going to sit down, very in-depth conversation. So to get everything in place, and I know that would be dependent upon each person, but as a general rule, how long does it take you to get them where they should be, okay, now they can go, I think we've got everything where we're supposed to have it. And I know that may change yearly depending on what's going on. But only a few things probably need to be juggled.
That sigh of relief you just did usually comes after one meeting.
Oh, that's
But it's usually because the anxiety people have about money And once we get into what the real goals are and we start defining those, that usually relieves that pressure for people. So the process itself can be 1 month or it can be 20 years. It really depends on the effort somebody wants to put into managing their finances and how serious they take things. You know, I've got people who are very, very focused on this is going to happen. We're going to get this squared away. Then we're going to get a plan in place and we're going to stick to it. Those people, it tends to happen faster. And I have some people who are very hands off and they're like, Ben, I just want a little direction. And then they change directions frequently. So when you change things, you have to adjust the plan. So there's not a magic number on time. That sigh of relief usually comes pretty quickly, but I always tell people when I meet with them the first time, like, this is difficult because this is stuff you've probably never done before, or you've probably never done correctly. And I tell people I'm going to know you better financially than you ever have really let somebody get in, because I can't give you financial advice if I don't know everything about you.
Right.
So we get into all kinds of topics, and everybody has different things they spend money on. Everybody's got hobbies. I've got friends who are card collectors. I've got friends who hunt and fish and play golf and all kinds of things. And every one of those is a hobby that costs a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely.
So you've got to figure out what someone's priorities are. If financial planning isn't a priority, I'm not a good fit for that person, because they need to take it seriously, and it is a process. And I do give people homework, as I say. Like, I can't do it for you. I'm going to ask that you show up with documents and show up with things so that we can go through these together and really learn about everything, your financial picture.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because finances is one of those things people don't sit down at a dinner table with friends and chit chat.
Absolutely. We just came through a holiday. How much around your dinner table did you bring up politics, religion, and money? You know, these are things that people don't generally talk about because they argue about them. And especially with families, with a husband and wife, or if someone's helping with their parents' finances or their adult children's finances, these are tough topics.
Yeah.
So I really try and remove emotion from financial planning for people, because my wife and I may argue here and there about money and kids. Everybody does, I think, but I'm not going to argue with someone about their money and their kids. That's what people do outside of my office.
Right.
And I always tell people there's a reason there's a box of tissues in my office.
Sure.
It can be emotional. I try and remove that emotion from it. So when we're talking about, are you planning on sending your kid to Wofford, which is a very expensive college in South Carolina, or are you going to send them to Midlands Tech for 2 years and not pay anything?
Right.
You know, these bring out emotions in people, and good, bad, and ugly. I mean, money can do that.
And sadly, you can have all the plans you want in the world with your children, but they're going to end up doing what they want to do.
Well, and that's why financial planning isn't a quick fix, because life happens.
That's right.
We all know people who've had tragedies in their life.
Right.
And whenever somebody has a really good event or a really bad event, it affects finances. If you're planning for this great big wedding, that's a fun event. It's a really expensive endeavor, or it can be.
Sure.
Funerals, tragic deaths, divorce. These are all life-altering events that affect people financially big time.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the biggest curveball you probably throw people.
Ooh, that's a question I don't get. The biggest curveball I throw people?
Yeah, like they just really weren't expecting that.
Yeah, such a good question. Probably when I ask them about what they're spending money on that they wish they weren't spending money on. Because I think we all have that as well.
Yeah.
I think we all spend money on something, and it becomes a habit almost. But when you step back and think, what do you spend money on that you wish you didn't? And people it throws them for a curveball, and they have to think about it a little bit. And a lot of times they can't answer me. They have to think about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would have to actually think about that answer.
Probably another one I get is when I have a budgeting exercise that I take people through. And there's zero technology involved in it. And it's usually meant for a husband and wife, and not meant to cause arguments, but meant to solve arguments. I want people for a month to sit down every day for the first 2 weeks with their partner and say, what did you spend money on today? And account for every penny.
Yikes.
Exactly. That kind of ruffles some feathers sometimes. But the idea is everybody spends money differently. You could shop on Amazon with 2 swipes of a thumb and, packages are on your door sometimes same day. And you're spending money, but you may not really be thinking about money you're spending on. And typically when you've got 2 people in a relationship, they spend money slightly differently. I remember years and years ago, my wife and I have been married for 23 years. And when we had a hard time joining accounts together as a young married couple, and it's because she was a check writer. No one's writing checks anymore, but I would swipe my debit card. She'd write her checks. It was hard to balance a checkbook when you're in your 20s. So writing down and going through that exercise and understanding where you spend money. A lot of times people, they go through this and we graduate from every day to every week to every 2 weeks. And,
Sure.
and the idea is not, I worry about if you spent $8 at Starbucks. I don't care. You should care. That's something that if you tell me your goal is to retire at 62 years old and have a certain lifestyle, but you're not willing to save the money to do that, you should see that yourself.
Right.
So the idea of getting people a little uncomfortable with understanding a budget, I don't care where people spend money. It's your money. You spend it however you want. But my goal is to help you reach your goals.
Right. Yeah. Because, the Starbucks, that's expensive if you do it every day.
We all spend money somewhere.
Right. Absolutely. Mine's not Starbucks, but yes, absolutely. You're right.
Well, my kids love going to Starbucks. I have a 14-year-old daughter who thinks it's a great after-school treat. And she'll say, can we go to Starbucks? I'm like, did you bring your wallet? And all of a sudden she doesn't want to go to Starbucks anymore.
That's right.
So, budgeting is something that is hard for everybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I meet with have never had a budget. They're not on budgets. They spend money when they want to. But when you're trying to reach a goal of a certain dollar amount for a certain item, retirement's a big one. You should have a budget. You should understand where you spend money.
Right.
Again, it's not a matter of me telling where people should spend money or shouldn't spend money. It's just understanding how your finances work. Understand what an interest rate is.
Yes.
Budgeting kind of graduates us into, you went and bought a new car and you took the first rate the dealership gave you and you said, I'll just finance it for 2 or 3 years and be done with it. Well, did you shop that rate? Not everybody gets the best rate, and you need to understand why. You need to understand your credit. You need to understand all these and how everything works into the big financial picture.
Right. Absolutely. Because I don't know about with cars. I know with homes and getting loans and different things like that, your debt to income is a huge part of
Absolutely.
what your rate you're going to get.
Well, and oftentimes when people are buying homes, it's what they can afford, not what they should afford.
Sure.
And debt to income ratio, all these things, that there's some great mortgage brokers that you and I both know, and they can take people through that process. But do people understand what these numbers mean? And when you're going through buying a house, buying a big purchase, anything that financing is involved with, whether it be an expensive vehicle or a home, you need to understand what those ratios are. You need to understand what's in your account, what's on your tax returns, what your credit score means, and what those can do to help or hurt you.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So for the general public that will be seeing this, what one piece of advice could you give them to help them start financial health? I guess I will use that word because it's not just savings.
It's not. It's a huge big picture, and it can be scary to tackle. A lot of people don't want to do it because they don't want to put in the effort that it requires, and there's a lot of looking inward and understanding where you make mistakes. The biggest thing I think where people need to start, and just as far as a takeaway for today goes, define things. If you don't have a goal financially, it is hard to work towards it. You can't work towards a retirement goal if you don't know what retirement looks like. What is the goal? How do I get there? What's the smartest way to get there? What do I need to start or stop doing to get to that goal? But it all comes back to really defining a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. Finding a goal. I'll ask my husband tonight, what's our goal? He'll go, huh?
Well, and breaking down the goal, like what goal for what?
Right. That's what he'll be going.
I'd like to shoot an 85 every time I play golf.
Yeah.
But what am I doing in order to accomplish that goal? If I'm not doing anything, then is it really a goal, or is it? So that's a dream. And it's okay to have dreams, but if you really want to work and accomplish something, define it.
Very cool. Thank you very much. So tell people how we get in touch with you. Website.
I am easy to find. Ben Heritage is there are only so many of us in South Carolina, only so many of us, period. I've been in the Columbia area for a long time, so I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. My office is on St. Andrews Road. You can reach me by email, ben.heritage@lpl.com. I'm also on Facebook. That's an easy way, or LinkedIn. I'm easy to get a hold of. My office number is easy to find online. I'm a Google search away.
Perfect. Well, thank you so very much. This was very informative. Now you're going to make me very self-conscious when I go to swipe that Amazon with my thumb.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thanks for hanging out with us today, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a person, business, idea, an event that Lexington needs to know more about, email me, local@forallthingslexington.com. That's the number 4, y'all. Brought to you in part by GervaisStreetBridge.com, Columbia's most unforgettable free-to-list business directory.
This episode was brought to you in part by Ben Herritage, financial, investment, retirement, money management, and planning. And by Angela Barrett at HomeMattersSC.com, building on what matters to you.